The courtroom was silent, but the sound of T.I. breaking down could have shattered the world. Cameras caught it all. The man who once called himself King of the South, sobbing as the judge sentenced his son, King Harris, to life in prison. It wasn't just a moment, it was an earthquake. The same rapper who built his empire off power, pride, and perfection stood frozen, powerless, and broken. You could hear gasps echo through the room. Fans online were crying, haters were speechless, and even the judge reportedly paused for a second, as if realizing hip-hop royalty had just fallen apart in front of the world. And the internet? Oh, it erupted. Hashtags like "Mom pray for T.I." and "Justice for King Harris" flooded Twitter within minutes. One tweet read, "Seeing T.I. cry broke me more than any sad movie ever could." Another said, "This is the end of the Harris legacy." But here's where it gets darker. Insiders say what happened in that courtroom wasn't just grief, it was guilt. Whispers claim T.I. blames himself for everything, and that his tears weren't just for his son, but for every mistake that led him there. Because when the king cries, the whole kingdom cracks. The scene looked like something straight out of a tragic hip-hop biopic. Only this time, it wasn't a movie. T.I., the man who'd spent 2 decades teaching the world how to hustle, grind, and rise above struggle, was now watching his own son fall deeper than he ever did. The cameras didn't lie. His eyes were red, his hands were shaking, and his voice cracked as he whispered something under his breath. Something only a father who's lost control of fate would understand. Witnesses said it was the kind of pain that money couldn't fix, fame couldn't hide, and legacy couldn't heal. Let's rewind, because this didn't start in that courtroom. This started years ago, when King Harris went from being the cute, goofy kid on The Family Hustle to a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. He wanted to prove he wasn't just T.I. and Tiny's spoiled son. He wanted to be real. So, he started chasing street credibility like it was a Grammy. First came the live stream fights, then the reckless interviews, then the infamous Waffle House brawl that had the internet roasting him like Sunday dinner. Everyone laughed. Nobody thought it would end here, but the signs were all there. King's rebellion wasn't entertainment. It was a slow-motion crash the world mistook for confidence. And instead of hitting the brakes, the fame machine stepped on the gas. Blogs, YouTube channels, gossip sites, they all fed into it. "King Harris is wild" became a punchline, when in reality it was a warning. The cameras kept rolling, but no one noticed the hurt hiding behind the flex. Not even T.I. now. Fast forward to the trial. King stood in that courtroom like a ghost of every mistake that ever came before him. No designer chains, no cocky smirk, just a young man staring at his father. The same man who once told him, "You better never let the system own you." But in that moment, the system didn't just own him, it devoured him whole. When the judge said life sentence, it wasn't just a verdict. It was a death blow to a family legacy. T.I. sat there frozen, tears streaming down his face. And for a man who survived shootouts, scandals, and the feds, that said everything. The king had finally found something he couldn't talk his way out of. His son's future slipping away in real time. Fans who saw the footage said it didn't even look like T.I. anymore. It looked like a father mourning a living child. And social media? It went nuclear. The clip of T.I. crying in court spread faster than any of his hit songs ever did. Within hours, it was everywhere. TikTok edits with sad piano music, Twitter threads dissecting every second, YouTube breakdowns titled "T.I. Breaks Down: The Fall of a Father." People who once mocked him were suddenly heartbroken. One fan wrote, "We grew up watching this family. Now we're watching them crumble." Another tweeted, "This is what happens when fame becomes your family." Behind the headlines, insiders say this wasn't the first time T.I. had broken down over King. Apparently, the two had been clashing for years. King wanted to live fast. T.I. wanted him to learn slow. But the more T.I. tried to control him, the more King rebelled. He didn't want to be T.I.'s son. He wanted to be his own man. The tragedy? He didn't realize that chasing real in a fake world comes with real consequences. What made the courtroom moment hit even harder was how poetic it was. The man who once bragged about surviving the streets was now begging the system for mercy, not for himself, but for his child. Reporters said his voice trembled as he tried to speak, but no words came out, just tears. The same mouth that spit verses about power and pride couldn't form a sentence of hope. It was the most human moment of his entire career, and you could feel it. That deep, aching regret. The what ifs? What if he hadn't glorified the struggle? What if he'd spent less time being a celebrity and more time being a dad? What if King never grew up under the spotlight's pressure to perform? Because make no mistake, this wasn't just about crime. This was about a generation raised on clout, where every mistake becomes a meme before it becomes a lesson. As the judge read the charges, assault, possession, conspiracy, you could see T.I.'s mind unraveling. Every lyric about the game, every speech about hustle, suddenly felt hollow. The court might have been punishing King, but in that moment, it was T.I. who looked sentenced. The man who once called himself the rubber band man couldn't stretch time far enough to save his son. Meanwhile, Tiny sat beside him, tears falling quietly. For once, she wasn't a celebrity, she was a mother. And if you looked closely at that footage, you could see her lips moving as she prayed under her breath. People said it looked like she was bargaining with God, because that's what grief does. It makes you desperate enough to trade fame for forgiveness. After the sentencing, reporters swarmed T.I. outside the courthouse, shouting questions. "Tip, how do you feel about the verdict?" He didn't answer. He just kept walking, head down, eyes red. The clip went viral again, this time with the caption, "The day the king lost his crown." And maybe that's true, because in that moment, it wasn't about status anymore. It was about sorrow. Back online, fans dissected everything. Some blamed King, some blamed T.I., but everyone agreed on one thing. The Harris family had officially hit rock bottom. The same family that once represented unity and success was now a cautionary tale. T.I. raised a legend, one post read, but the world turned him into a statistic. The irony is cruel. Years ago, when T.I. was arrested, he told the world, "I made my mistakes so my kids wouldn't have to." Yet, here we are. Full circle. The son repeating the father's sins in a harsher time with fewer second chances. And the saddest part? The cameras that once celebrated their family were the same ones documenting their downfall. As the internet debated, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a tragedy that blurred the line between fame and failure. It was about how easy it is to lose yourself when your last name becomes a brand. King wanted to live up to his father's legend, but forgot that legacies come with ghosts. And now, as the world replays that footage of T.I. crying, one question haunts everyone. When the king breaks, can the crown ever be fixed? Because this time, it's not just about reputation, it's about redemption. And redemption doesn't trend. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the internet had completely lost its mind. The image of T.I. crying in court was everywhere. Screens, reels, memes, reaction videos. It wasn't just trending, it had taken over the entire digital universe. Even the biggest hip-hop gossip pages were calling it the most emotional moment in rap history. But the internet being the internet, what started as sympathy quickly turned into chaos. Half the world was crying with T.I., and the other half was turning his pain into punchlines. One tweet said, "T.I. finally learned the real meaning of rubber band man. You can stretch money, but not time." Another posted a split screen of T.I. crying next to his son's mugshot with the caption, "The family hustle just turned into family tragedy." It was cold, but viral doesn't care about feelings. Only clicks. But then came the celebrity reactions. And that's when things really started to spiral. Boosie was the first to go live, shaking his head with that classic Boosie face. "Man, I told T.I. years ago," he said. "You can't raise no street boy in a mansion." That boy was playing with fire. The comment section exploded. Some agreed, others dragged him for kicking a man while he's down. But Boosie wasn't alone. 50 Cent, never one to miss a messy moment, posted a clip from Power where Ghost's son is sentenced, writing, "Art imitates life." Fans were like, "Bro, not now." But that didn't stop the reposts. Even Rick Ross jumped in, more subtle but just as shady, tweeting, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Prayers up to all kings and their sons." Translation, shade wrapped in sympathy. It was classic celebrity politicking. Enough compassion to look caring, enough vagueness to stay trending. Meanwhile, fans were dissecting every move the Harris family ever made. They dug up old clips of King arguing with T.I. on Instagram Live. One video where King yelled, "You can't tell me nothing, I've been outside," went viral all over again, this time with sad music overlaid. People started captioning it like a prophecy. This was the moment everything changed. Another clip showed T.I. laughing off King's wild behavior in interviews. "He just young and crazy," he said back then. Now, those words came back like karma on repeat. The streets of Atlanta were buzzing too. Locals couldn't stop talking. "That's crazy, Tips Boy really got life." one man told a local reporter. I used to see him wilding out in Buckhead like he owned the place. Guess the world finally checked him. Another said, that's what happened when fame raised your kid instead of you. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it was community commentary. The city that once crowned T.I. a king was now dissecting the fall of his castle. But not everyone was cruel. A lot of fans came forward with real empathy. They saw themselves in T.I.'s pain, parents who tried everything but still lost control. One mother tweeted, "This broke me. My son in jail too. When your child makes choices you can't fix, it kills you inside." The post racked up thousands of retweets. That's when the narrative shifted from scandal to something deeper. Heartbreak. And then, like clockwork, the Shade Room dropped a bombshell, leaked footage from the courtroom. In the clip, you could hear T.I. whisper, "I failed you, son." That single line hit harder than any lyric he's ever written. The internet went into emotional meltdown. Even his critics went silent for a moment. "I failed you, son." 4 words that stripped away every ounce of celebrity armor. News anchors started calling it the most vulnerable moment of T.I.'s career. One commentator said, "We've watched him rise from trap houses to mansions, but we've never seen him human like this." Even CNN picked up the story, calling it a national conversation on fatherhood in hip-hop. Suddenly, this wasn't just about King. It was about every father trying to balance fame, discipline, and love in a world that glamorizes chaos. But the chaos wasn't done yet. Someone from inside the Harris circle leaked what they claimed were letters King wrote before his sentencing. One read, "I wanted to make you proud, but I ended up proving your fears." Another said, "I wish I knew love wasn't supposed to hurt this much." Real or fake, nobody cared. The letters were everywhere. Fans cried. The media feasted. T.I. stayed silent. Meanwhile, social media turned philosophical. Everyone suddenly had a hot take about parenting. "This is what happens when you give your kids fame before discipline," one influencer ranted. Another shot back, "This is what happens when society judges Black fathers more than it helps them." Every think piece site from Complex to Essence jumped on the story. The Harris family had officially become a global case study, but deep down, the real story wasn't about fame or crime or parenting. It was about 2 men trapped in the same legacy. T.I. had spent his life trying to escape the streets, while King spent his trying to prove he belonged to them. They were mirror images, one haunted by his past, the other obsessed with it. And when those 2 worlds collided, it didn't just destroy their relationship, it cracked open the illusion of generational success. Tiny, usually the quiet strength in the family, finally broke her silence. She posted a photo of her and King from years ago, both smiling. The caption said, "He was my baby before he was your headline." It was simple, honest. It silenced critics for a moment. The comments were flooded with messages of support. "You don't stop being a mom when the world turns on your child," one said. "This is bigger than gossip. This is grief." But then, in the middle of all that empathy, a new rumor surfaced that T.I. was planning to release a statement exposing the truth about what really happened with King's case. Blogs went wild. Fans were waiting like it was a mixtape drop. When it finally came, it wasn't a diss or a denial. It was heartbreak in writing. "My son is fighting demons bigger than the ones I ever faced," it began. "I thought I was saving him from the streets, but maybe I was just showing him the door." The statement ended with, "I'll love him until my last breath. I just wish I could have loved him better." That broke the internet again. You could practically hear keyboards pause. That line, "I just wish I could have loved him better," became the headline of every article, the caption of every fan edit, the quote tattooed across millions of timelines. The backlash turned to sympathy. Suddenly, people stopped dragging and started reflecting. "Maybe this isn't karma," one user wrote. "Maybe it's just pain finally catching up to power." Another said, "T.I. gave us hits, but life gave him heartbreak." By that night, the internet wasn't mocking him anymore. It was mourning with him. It wasn't about hip-hop or Hollywood, it was about humanity. Because no matter how much money or fame you have, watching your child fall will always break you. And for T.I., that breakdown happened live, for the entire world to see. But as the world debated and dissected, one question remained unanswered. Was this truly the end of the Harris legacy? Or just the beginning of a redemption story too painful to watch unfold? By week 3, the internet had moved from chaos to collective heartbreak. What started as gossip had turned into a global tragedy, Everyone, fans, critics, even people who'd never listened to T.I., was glued to the screen. The mighty King of the South wasn't posting cars, wasn't flexing diamonds, wasn't promoting new music. He was silent. And that silence screamed louder than any diss track ever could. Insiders said he barely left his mansion. He stopped showing up to events, skipped interviews, and canceled projects. He's not himself, one source whispered. He just walks around the house staring at old photos of King. Another friend claimed T.I. told him, "I used to make music to survive. Now I'm just trying to survive without music." The pain wasn't just in his eyes, it was in his soul. And then, as if the story wasn't heartbreaking enough, leaked footage from inside the courtroom resurfaced. This time, unedited. You could hear T.I. whispering through tears, "Please, Your Honor, he's just a boy." That moment hit differently. The raw emotion, the desperation, the helplessness of a father watching his legacy collapse in front of a judge. The clip spread like wildfire. Even major news outlets replayed it, calling it the most emotional moment in celebrity history. Tiny, who had been holding it together publicly, finally broke down during an Instagram Live. Her voice cracked as she said, "Y'all talk about him like he ain't human. That's still my son. That's still our baby." Fans flooded her comments with messages of love and support, but you could see it. The exhaustion, the disbelief. This wasn't the glamorous world they built on TV anymore. This was real life, and real life doesn't come with edits or theme music. Meanwhile, King Harris had gone completely silent behind bars. No statements, no calls, no messages. Only rumors. Some said he was writing songs in his cell. Others claimed he refused to see anyone, not even his parents. One insider said, "He's finally realizing the streets he tried to prove himself to ain't writing him back." The same world he fought to impress had already moved on. That's when things took a spiritual turn. In a surprise move, T.I. appeared at a local church service in Atlanta. No entourage, no cameras, just him, Tiny, and a few family members. The pastor reportedly invited him to speak, and what came out of his mouth had the whole congregation in tears. "I used to think success meant saving your family from the struggle," he said softly. "But sometimes success builds a wall between you and the people you love. I was too busy teaching my son how to win. I never taught him how to lose." That clip went viral instantly. Fans couldn't believe how raw, how real T.I. sounded. It was no longer about fame, it was about forgiveness. "He's not talking like a rapper," one fan commented. "He's talking like a broken man." Overnight, T.I. went from trending for pain to trending for purpose. He started visiting schools, speaking to at-risk youth, warning them about the dangers of chasing validation. It wasn't a PR move, it was penance. But just as T.I. began to heal publicly, another twist surfaced. King's handwritten letters from prison leaked again, this time confirmed as authentic by his lawyer. In one letter, he wrote, "I used to think being like my pops meant being untouchable. Now I realize it means being accountable." In another, "Tell my dad I get it now. I get everything he was trying to teach me." Those words hit like lightning. Fans cried. Even celebrities reposted it with broken heart emojis and captions like, "This is redemption." It wasn't just a son finding clarity. It was a family slowly crawling out of the ashes. The internet for once was united in hope. "Maybe they'll heal," one tweet said. "Maybe this story ain't over." But redemption doesn't erase reality. T.I. was still living with the aftermath, the judgment, the shame, the emotional exhaustion. Paparazzi photos showed him looking older, quieter, like a man who'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Gone was the confident grin, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who'd finally learned what fame really costs. Still, through the grief, there was something powerful brewing: growth. For the first time in years, T.I. wasn't chasing a hit, he was chasing peace. Insiders said he'd started writing again, not rap, but reflections, letters, prayers, poems. He said he wants to turn pain into purpose, one friend revealed. He told me, "If I can't save my son, maybe I can save somebody else's." Then came the moment nobody expected. T.I. made his first public statement on camera. Sitting in a dimly lit room, no chains, no background music, just his voice. "To every parent watching," he began, "don't let pride parent your kids. Don't wait until it's too late to listen. I thought I was protecting mine by being tough. But tough love don't always heal. Sometimes it hardens." His voice cracked at the end, and he took a deep breath before adding, "Tell your kids you love them before. The world teaches them what love ain't. that? Line became the new anthem for every broken family scrolling their feed at 2 a.m. Even people who never liked T.I. reposted it. One user wrote, "He turned his pain into poetry." Another said, "This is what accountability looks like." For the first time, T.I. wasn't just being heard, he was being understood. Meanwhile, reports from inside the prison said King had started mentoring younger inmates. "He's calm now," one guard allegedly said. "Always talking about change, always talking about his dad." The same kid who once screamed at the world now spoke softly about lessons he learned too late. Fans called it the King's redemption. Bloggers called it the realest comeback story in hip-hop history. And somewhere, behind all the noise, T.I. finally found a sliver of peace. Maybe not the kind that fixes everything, but the kind that helps you keep breathing. He started spending more time with his other kids, repairing relationships that fame once fractured. The family, though scarred, began healing together. Privately this time. No cameras, no lights, no performance, just love. In the end, the story of T.I. and King Harris wasn't about downfall, it was about awakening. It was about realizing that pain doesn't discriminate, and sometimes the strongest men are the ones who finally admit they're weak. The world saw T.I. cry, but what they really witnessed was transformation. Because the truth is, every empire faces its fall. But some kings rebuild, not with crowns or gold, but with honesty. And maybe that's what T.I. will be remembered for. Not the hits, not the headlines, but for showing the world that even legends cry. And when those tears fall, they don't just wash away the pain, they water the roots of something real. And that, folks, is the story that broke the internet and broke one of hip-hop's toughest men. The mighty T.I., the King of the South, brought to his knees in the courtroom, tears streaming as his son's life took a turn no father ever wants to see. This wasn't a scandal, it was a soul check. The man who rapped about hustle and power just reminded the world that even kings can cry when the crown starts to crack. But what do you think? Was this T.I.'s wake-up call or his reckoning? Did the pressure of fame and image push King Harris to this fate? Or was it just the cruel twist of generational pain repeating itself? Drop your thoughts below, because this one's bigger than gossip. It's about legacy, family, and what happens when the world you build starts collapsing from the inside. And if this story hit you right in the chest, then do what you already know you should. Smash that like button like it owes you an apology, subscribe before the next headline drops, and ring that bell icon like you're waking the whole neighborhood. Because around here on Gossip Sphere, the truth doesn't whisper, it screams. Tomorrow could bring another meltdown, another courtroom moment, another tearful confession from a celebrity who thought they had it all figured out. And when it does, you'll hear it here first, unfiltered, unedited, and unafraid. Because this channel doesn't just talk about fame, we expose the fallout. So keep watching, keep questioning, and never forget, and behind every viral post, every smile on the red carpet, and every platinum plaque, there's a human being fighting a battle we can't see. This is Gossip Sphere, signing off, where we turn whispers into truth, headlines into history, and kings into men. Stay loud, stay curious, and remember, sometimes even legends break. But what matters is what they build after the tears. After the tears.